Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. In today's video I will be trying out the 3-tier tray mould set from Let's Resin along with lots of other Let's Resin products. And of course these trays don't have to go on a stand, they are very versatile and you can use all your different resin techniques to create some beautiful trays in these moulds, and I will be having a go at that as well. So if all of that sounds interesting, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Right, let's have a look at this 3-tier resin tray set. I was dying to look inside the box and see what was in there. I was curious to know whether I would get 3 tray moulds or whether I would have to use the one mould 3 separate times. And I was really pleased when I opened the box and saw 3 separate moulds. That was a big bonus. So as with everything from Let's Resin, it was very well packaged and it had very clear instructions. Although you don't really need the instructions, the assembly was very easy. And just to prove it, I will skip through all the unbagging and put it together just so you can see how easy it is. So there are 2 side pieces and then you've got the 3 tray supports that just hook on top of those. And so yeah, the side pieces just slide into the supports and it all clips together really quickly and easily. And then when they're all together, there's another piece which hooks over the bottom of the frame to keep it all straight and sturdy. And so I wanted to know if this frame was sold separately or whether you could only buy it with the moulds, because I knew you would want to know that too. And the answer, it seems, at the moment is that they're still in production, you know, the single frames. So at the moment you can only buy them with the moulds, but it said on the viewers' questions, which I looked at, that in a few months, I think it was 2 to 3 months from now, they will have just the frame available as well, so that you can buy them separately if you want to make lots of these. Right then, so my tray set is going to be on my desk, holding all sorts of Let's Resin products, and so I knew the trays wouldn't be seen that much, other than, you know, the edges. And so I didn't want to do anything too fancy for this set that I'm doing, but I will do something a bit fancier later on for a single tray, because of course these trays don't have to be used on the stand, do they? They can be used individually for other purposes, so I'll do that a bit later. At the moment, I'm keeping it simple, and what I decided to do was use my chameleon pigments and just completely cover the inside of the 3 moulds and then pour in the black epoxy, which you will see soon. So on this one, I'm using teal. On the next one, I think I used the grape colour. I love the chameleon powders, I really do. Anyway, and the last one, I think I used blue. And I thought those 3 colours would work really well together. I knew the mould would take a lot of the chameleon pigment, so rather than constantly dipping my brush into the pot, I poured in quite a generous amount and just brushed it around with a big soft brush until I felt like everything was completely covered. And then I repeated the process for the other 2 moulds. So then it was time for the resin. I'm using Let's Resin's black epoxy resin, which is a 1-to-1 resin and works beautifully when you're using chameleon powders. It's a nice constant colour. You don't get any patchiness because, you know, you're not adding pigment, it's already black. I would say when you're mixing it though, mix for a bit longer, because when you're mixing clear resin, it's easy to see whether it's mixed or not, because it'll be streaky if it's not mixed. When you're mixing this black one, it's harder to tell, so give it a little bit of extra mixing time just to make sure. So what I was doing just then was marking the sides of my silicone pots. I do find that they're really hard to see, the marks on the pots. And yeah, I needed big pots. Each one of these moulds takes 9.8 fluid ounces. And so I'm mixing enough for 2 moulds. I knew I could get enough for 2 moulds in one of my silicone pots, and I rounded it up. I did 10 fluid ounces for each mould. It's good as well with Let's Resin. A lot of the time on the moulds it's printed on there how much volume you need to fill it. It's in fluid ounces, and sometimes it's quite hard to find it on the mould, but if you look closely it's usually there somewhere telling you how much resin you need. So at that point I ran out of the black epoxy in those bottles, but luckily I had another set. So after I'd finished mixing, I could mix up some more off camera. Right, so I put my 2 moulds onto my Let's Resin levelling table, which is very handy. The reason it's handy is obviously for obvious reasons, it's a levelling table, and so it makes sure everything's kept level. But the other reason I find it handy is because once you've finished pouring, if you want to use your table for something else, it's really easy to pick up your levelling table with everything on it and go and move it somewhere else out of the way. So that's the other reason I find that levelling stand really handy. Anyway, what I'm doing here is just adding enough resin to fill up the sides. I'm moving it around so that everything's completely filled. I didn't want to put too much in all at once because then it would have been hard to manipulate it without making a mess. I'm just pulling those bits on the side. The support pieces are really helpful when it comes to, demolding and for stretching it outwards to make sure you're getting all your resin in. So I like those little tabs on the side. So yeah, I just manipulated it enough to get it all completely filled, and that was it really. Just needed to leave it to cure, and then after about 8 hours it was time for demolding. Right then, so I left it, as I said, about 8 hours. It was actually still a bit bendy, but that doesn't matter. Once you get it out of the mould, it becomes rigid a lot quicker than it would be, if you left it in the mould. I do find it cures quicker once it's out. And, even though it's bendy, when I take it out the mould, don't panic. It reshapes really easily. In fact, you don't really need to reshape it yourself. It finds its own shape. It's kind of like a muscle memory for resin. So yeah, I'm just pulling the sides away and then just getting it out of the mould. Let's see how it turned out. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a really bent bit where I've bent it, demoulding it. Do you see? Are you watching it? That bent bit, it's already nearly gone. That's what I'm saying about it relaxing back into its own shape without you having to do much. I'm just helping it along to make sure that it's okay. But yeah, it kind of sorts itself out if it's bendy when you take it out. And look at those colours. Look how the chameleon powder changes in the light. I can see my brush strokes. I don't know if you've noticed that. Maybe I need a bigger, softer brush so that I don't get those brush strokes. But apart from that, I love it. Let's look at the other 2. So this is the one with the blue chameleon powder, and I love that one too. I think the grape one is my favourite, and this is the teal one. They're gorgeous, aren't they? And they all go together so nicely. So yeah, once they're demoulded, they need to just be left flat for a while to make sure that they get rigid in a nice flat position. We'll go back to those soon to see them assembled with things on them, but for now let's make my second tray. I wanted to try something a bit fancier. I say second tray, it's my fourth, isn't it? But this one's going to be the fancier one. This time I'm using Let's Resin's regular epoxy resin, which is my favourite resin. I love this one to bits, and I love how their resins often come with extras as well. So I've got the mixing cups there, some stirring sticks, some gloves and some instructions. Let's Resin are so good with their packaging and with their little extras. So once again, I'm measuring 5 fluid ounces of part A and 5 fluid ounces of part B and giving it a really good mix. After stirring for 2 minutes, I separated the resin into 4 smaller silicone jugs and kept some clear resin in my mixing jug, and that would be added at the end. So I was feeling a little bit more adventurous with this one, and I chose 4 different colours. I had the gold, the brown, the gold pink and the sinking white alcohol ink, all from Let's Resin. So I started with the gold, and I didn't mention that, yeah, these are from Let's Resin, but what they actually are the mica powders. I didn't mention that. They're all mica powders, apart from the white, which is the alcohol ink. Anyway, so what I'm doing here is doing it in a rectangle all around the edge and letting it find its own way down. I didn't want it to be tidy. I wanted it to be kind of random the way it dripped down, so that I could get some interesting effects happening when I add the next colour, which would push it down the sides and hopefully mix with it a little bit too. So next is the white, and with hindsight, I didn't really need the white. It didn't do what I expected it to do. I really like the finished results, but funnily enough, you can't really tell that there was any white in there. I don't know what happened. Maybe I didn't shake up the bottle of the white alcohol ink quite enough, or maybe I didn't mix enough into the resin. I'm not sure, but it didn't really show up. Anyway, you'll see soon that it's still a really cool effect, just it's not what I was expecting, that's all. So once the white was in there, I went for the dark brown and poured it from left to right, back and forth, so that it was kind of, I was trying to be quite methodical, I suppose, and do it a bit like a puddle pour, but with it being a rectangle, you've got to go from side to side. I love the patterns you get as you're drizzling it down. Doesn't it look good? After the brown, I went for the gold pink, and yet again, this is another colour that kind of got lost in the finished piece, but anyway, I suppose it's not lost, because without the white and without the pink, it would have looked different. It just doesn't stand out in the finished piece. You'll see very, very soon what happened anyway, won't you? But yeah, I love just watching it rippling as it goes down. It's a gorgeous colour, that one, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. So once I'd got the pink in, I finished it off with some clear. And I left it until the next day to cure, and here's a little time lapse of what happened after I'd left it. And there we go. So let's see how it looked when we got it out of the mould. And so here we go. Not what I was expecting, but I absolutely love it. It reminds me of polished walnut or some kind of really exotic wood. Do you see what I mean? I love that. And that will go really nice in my dining room on my wooden sideboard. Yeah, I think that's very classy looking. It's subtle, but I think it's beautiful. I think this tray mould is awesome. And yeah, thank you, Let's Resin. I love it to bits. Okay, so let's go back now and have a look at the 3-tier stand. So there's the trays all together before they go on the stand, and I absolutely love the colours. And here they are on the stand, all in position, looking pretty. Aren't they lovely? It was so easy to do, yet so effective at the same time. And very soon I'm going to be moving from my current craft room to another one, which is bigger, another room in the house. And so this will go on my table with my lovely Let's Resin products on display. So yeah, I think it'll look nice on my table when I've got a bit more space. At the moment, I'm just going to have to put it away until I get moved. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. So we've come to the end of another video and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed and you would like to, please do that too. My channel is very slow growing. It would be nice to reach 100,000, but I'm quite a way off at the moment, and all the subscribers I can get would be excellent. So yeah, that's it for now. I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.